Let's talk about writing books. I'm Rex Baker. I've written a couple of books, 2 to be exact. So I'm not a big time author. I'm not going to be quitting my day job anytime soon, but I do have a little bit of perspective on book writing. Let's talk about it in this episode of the Attic Library. I'm Rex Baker, and welcome to the Attic Library. Go ahead and click subscribe and the notification bell. That way you'll get a notification when I come out with a new video. I read where 81% of Americans feel they have a book within them, but only 2% actually ever write one. So if you feel you have a book within you, go ahead and start writing it, and start today. This isn't some you too can become a best-selling author type of thing. I just want to encourage you that if you feel that you have a book within you, that writing a book is on your bucket list of things you want to do in this life, go ahead and do it. There are different types of books, novels, research books. Let's say you're a college professor and you may spend years researching a topic to write a book on it. Now, the kind of book I'm talking about is not that kind of book. It's not a novel. It's not a research book. It is more of a how-to book. You've been through something, you feel you have something to say, and you want to write a book about it. Most authors today are self-published. They don't go through a publishing company. They don't have an agent. And I would say that most self-published books, you can go from zero to published in about 6 months. 4 points I'd like to share with you about writing a book, and then when we wrap it up, I'll talk a little bit about whether you should write a book. Point number 1, if you are going to write books today, get used to Amazon. They are the big player in the market. There are pros and cons to Amazon, but they've really democratized the book publishing process. You don't have to have an agent. You don't have to have a publisher. All you need is an idea, a computer, a Word program, and you can go to work. The fact that you can directly self-publish your own book to Amazon is the good part. Now, for the other side of the story, there are literally millions of books on Amazon. So it's one thing to publish your book, it's another thing to get it noticed online. So that's the challenge. There's a lot of people out there today writing books, and you can be one of them, but you have to understand that it's going to take some work to get your book noticed and to get people to buy it. For the record, I've published 2 books. One is called Breaking Out of Burnout. I published that in 2019. And then Organized Thinking for the Disorganized Mind, something I can really relate to personally. I published that one just recently. Point number 2 about writing a book. It's not as hard as you think. I'm not saying it isn't hard. I'm saying it's not as hard as you think. I've heard people say, I would like to write a book, but I don't have time. It will take too long. Because in their mind, they think it will take years. I used to think that, but I found out differently. Here's the thing about writing a book. It is hard. If you're going to write a well put together and thought out book, it should be a challenge to you. But it's not the kind of thing that has to take years. The typical how-to book on Amazon can go from an idea in your head to published in 3 to 6 months. 3 is on the short end of things, but no more than 6 months. And when I talk about how-to books, here's what I mean. It's something you've been through. Here's most of the books on Amazon are coming from this viewpoint. Someone has been through something. They lost weight, they survived cancer, they ran a marathon, they got 6-pack abs, they overcame depression or anxiety. So on the successful end of coming out of that, they write a book about it because they feel like they've got something to say. And guess what? They do. Point number 3, writing a book brings out your best thinking. If you're going to take something you've been through, that you've accomplished, that you've overcome, and you're going to write, say, 30 to 40,000 words on it, and you're going to think it through and you're going to lay it out, it's going to force you to do your best thinking. Look, let me tell you this about writing books. People don't come up to me on the street and go, hey, are you that guy that wrote Breaking Out of Burnout? Would you sign my copy now? That doesn't happen. I'll sell a few copies, but it forced me in writing that book and putting my thoughts together to do some of my best thinking. And that spills over into other areas of life. Point 4, pick a topic. You got to have something to write about. You might think, well, I'd like to write a book, but I don't know what I want to write about. That's why starting with something that you've been through, you've got personal experience at it, you have perspective, only you can tell your story, so it's a good place to start on writing a book. I knew that I wanted to write books before I knew what I wanted my first book to be about. So one thing about picking a topic, don't wait on the book angel to come along and drop Moby Dick by your bedside at night, because that may not happen. You have to start writing and write about something. So my first book, I'd gotten to the point where I knew I wanted to write one. Didn't know for sure what it should be about. So I looked at my life and I realized, hey, I went through a period of burnout. I overcame that, so I'll write a book about it. Now my goal for that book was not to necessarily leave a legacy, but it was to learn the ropes of how to write and publish a book. So I wasn't looking to become a bestseller, wasn't looking to make the big time. I wanted to figure out the nuts and bolts of how you wrote a book. And I knew the only way to do that was to do one and write it and publish it. For my second book, Organized Thinking for the Disorganized Mind, I picked something that I wrestle with and had fought through, still wrestle with it. But in the second book, I knew that I wanted to interview people and incorporate their quotes and their perspective into the book. One thing you run into with book writing is copyright. You read something that somebody else says, or you read an article, and you run into this issue of, well, if I quote too much of them, I may run into copyright issues there. So I thought to myself, I want to do my own interviews. I want to come up with my own material and incorporate that into a book. So I did that with Organized Thinking for the Disorganized Mind. So I would have my own material and I would practice that art of doing that and bring that out in book number 2. Now my dream book, legacy book, whatever you want to call that, I don't know what that is yet. I still have books in me that I want to write. My goal is to write and publish at least one book a year for as long as God gives me the ability to do that. If one of those turns into a legacy book that after I'm gone, I leave this behind, then that's great. But most people don't ever write the first book. Most people that go through life thinking, I'd like to do that. I would like to write a book. That's on my bucket list, but I can't do it right now. I can say that writing books has changed my life. I can't say that a lot of other people have gotten something out of my books. I hope they do. I hope a lot of people buy them in the future. But even if they don't, it has changed me for the better. It has taught me a lot about thinking, taught me a lot about what it takes to come up with an idea and bring it through to fruition. I've heard a lot of people say, I'd like to write a book one day, but they never get around to doing it. The reason is they think it'll take too long. They think that they've got to be at the perfect time in life to write a book. I used to think that. For years I thought, I want to write a book, but now's not the right time. A year later, I would still be saying, now's not the right time. Here's what I found out. You can write and publish a book most of the time in the time that you would normally take making excuses why you don't have time to do it. Which leads me to this question. Should you write a book? I don't know. I'm not you. But I can say this. If it's on your bucket list, if you have that little voice within you that says, I'd like to write a book, then write it. But don't wait on the perfect time, because the perfect time will never come. Make a commitment to write a little bit each day, and then over several months, you can write and publish a book. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. I'd love to get some discussion going among people and friends who say, yeah, I'd like to write a book. Well, let's talk about it. Let's get some discussion going. Hey, I'll make a deal with you. Write and publish a book. I'll review it right here on the Attic Library. I'm Rex Baker. You have a good day.
you.